Management and Climate Readiness, speaking here today from the territories of the Musqueam, the Skokomish, and the Tsleil-Waututh peoples. I am joined virtually by my colleague Nathan Cullen, Minister of Water, Lands and Resource Stewardship. Today we will be sharing an update on the current wildfire and drought situation in British Columbia. As of this morning, there are no people or properties under evacuation order or evacuation alert due to wildfires. And since last week, more than 1,000 properties had their evacuation alerts rescinded. This is good news for communities, and we have seen good progress on wildfires. That being said, I do want to acknowledge that there are people in our province who have lost their homes this year due to wildfire, and every single case is heartbreaking and devastating for those people and those families. My thoughts are with you, and we are here to work with you and your communities during these difficult times. There are currently 267 wildfires burning, with 4 starts in the last 24 hours. There are currently no longer any wildfires of note. These are encouraging numbers. Recent cool, wet weather is giving BC Wildfire Service an opportunity to make significant gains on wildfires, especially in the south. Another sign that we are approaching fall weather is that campfire bans throughout much of the province have been rescinded, meaning that this Labor Day weekend you can safely enjoy campfires in most places in BC. As a reminder, please do check if there are any fire bans that have been issued by your local government. The BC Wildfire Service takes several factors into account when making these decisions, including current and future forecasts, recent rains, and cooler, wetter weather overnight. Larger open burning, known as Category 2 and Category 3 fires, are still banned across British Columbia except in the Northwest Fire Centre. I want to be clear, we are not out of the woods yet. Even with the recent rain, we're experiencing the impacts of prolonged drought in some parts of British Columbia, and there are impacts of prolonged drought in some parts of British Columbia. And there are parts of the province that remain at higher risk for human and lightning-caused wildfire. Until the wildfire season is fully behind us, people need to take extra care when having a campfire. Spending time around a campfire with friends and loved ones is a favorite pastime for British Columbians, and the last thing anyone wants is for that happy experience to turn into a nightmare. British Columbians have really done their part through the summer to keep down human-caused wildfires, and now is not the time to let our guard down or give up on that collective effort. Going into the long weekend, we are expecting temperatures to increase throughout the province, which will come with an added fire risk. I'm encouraging everyone to remain prepared and to stay alert and know where to find validated emergency information. The BC Wildfire Service app is a great resource for up-to-date information on wildfires throughout the province and information on all emergencies, including evacuation alerts and evacuation orders, is available at emergencyinfobc.ca. We have noticed over the last couple of years that people are really starting to recognize the impacts of climate change and are being proactive to prepare for emergencies. People have done an incredible job of staying on top of household preparedness, and that means having an evacuation plan, building a grab-and-go bag, and knowing where to find validated emergency information. People and businesses are also being mindful of their water usage and conserving it where they can. We are all in this together, and with that collective spirit, we are making a difference. So thank you. When there are evacuations, it is important to know what to do, where to go, and what to bring. Your household emergency plan will have those answers for you ready to go at a moment's notice. Information on where to evacuate to and the routes to get there will be issued by your local government or First Nation in the evacuation order. And when you are placed under an evacuation alert, that is the time to make sure that you have everything in place in case you need to leave your home in short notice. Earlier this year, the province launched the Emergency Ready Planner. This online tool makes it easier to build an emergency plan and to provide you with a checklist of everything that you need to be prepared. If you don't have an emergency plan already, please make one now. If you don't live in an area prone to wildfires, your emergency plan can be used for any type of emergency, whether it's wildfire, flood, earthquakes, or tsunami. The Emergency Ready Planner is available at preparedbc.ca/emergency ready. When there are evacuations, whether that is due to wildfires or other emergencies, the province is there to help people meet their basic needs. Emergency Support Services, or ESS, will be available to help people find accommodations, help with the cost of food, clothing, and other incidentals. To be connected to Emergency Support Services, people will need to visit an evacuation reception center, and those details of your local evacuation reception center will be included in your evacuation order. I encourage everyone to get outside and enjoy the beauty that our province has to offer. But please remember that with rising temperatures through this long weekend, the risk of wildfires also does increase. So let's continue to do our part to be mindful when having a campfire, stay safe, and be alert. Thank you. I'll now turn it over to Minister Cullen.
Thank you very much, Minister Ma, and good afternoon to everyone. I'm Nathan Cullen, the MLA for Stikine and the Minister of Water, Land and Resource Stewardship. I'd like to acknowledge that I'm speaking from the territory of Gideon Clan of the Wet'suwet'en people here in Smithers. Today, I would like to provide another update on drought in BC. Drought remains a challenge in many parts of our province. In addition to experiencing a significant drought in 2023, we started off this year with the lowest snowpack on record. Our government responded by taking a coordinated approach to drought preparedness, getting started earlier, working with our partners, and investing in solutions to help British Columbians manage in times of water scarcity. In the past couple of weeks, many areas in BC have seen more rain and, as a result, a noticeable bump in stream levels. While the rain has provided some welcome relief for some communities and watersheds, many of those same communities are now heading into a week of warmer and drier weather. Vancouver Island and the Bulkley Lakes and Upper Fraser West regions remain at drought level 5, the most severe drought level there is. As of this week, over half of the province's local ecosystems and economies are being significantly impacted by drought. Even with that recent rainfall, prolonged drought conditions in many regions continue to put a strain on local water resources and the well-being of fish populations, in particular wild salmon, which rely on healthy and sustained water flows in rivers and streams. Voluntary reductions in water conservation measures can play a huge role in maintaining stream flows and can even prevent or delay the need for further regulatory action, including what are known as temporary protection orders. I want to thank all British Columbians who continually support BC's drought response by voluntarily reducing their own water use. We work very closely with water users such as golf courses, industry, agriculture to reduce water use before considering mandated water use restrictions. We're also asking the public to help us because, as we know, every drop counts. Reducing your own water use and respecting any water restrictions put in place by local government or First Nations is imperative for ensuring the sustainability of our watersheds. Please visit gov.bc.ca/drought to learn how you can reduce your own water use. As drought conditions persist, temporary protection orders may still be considered for watersheds where vulnerable fish populations are at risk. In previous years, we've seen temporary protection orders implemented for the salmon, Bassett Creek, Cooksalla River, and Solemn River. Fish in these watersheds are known to be particularly vulnerable to drought conditions each year. Issuing water use restrictions is not something I take lightly, and implementing them is a last resort. Decisions to issue temporary protection orders are based on supporting science and also a careful analysis of the socioeconomic impacts. Drought also impacts the livelihoods of many British Columbians, particularly farmers and ranchers. Recently, I spoke with the general manager of the BC Cattlemen's Association to discuss the challenges the agricultural sector is facing as a result, particularly along the Salmon River. I'm grateful for the opportunity to continue to connect with food producers and better understand how we can better support them to navigate the challenges and secure water for animals, crops, and feed due to drought. We are committed to supporting the agricultural sector to be resilient in the face of climate change and ongoing drought concern. That's why we put together a $100 million fund into the Water Infrastructure Program to equip BC farmers with the education and the tools necessary to better manage, collect, and store water for crops and livestock. To support people, communities, industry, and wildlife, we've also provided almost $370 million for for the Community Emergency Preparedness Fund, 80 million to expand the Agriculture Infrastructure Fund, and 100 million for the Watershed Security Fund. Thank you to the ag community for their ongoing dedication and their resilience. Wanted to do a quick update finally on the status of the Chilcotin River landslide. We continue to work with First Nations on landslide recovery. We are also partnering with Chilcotin National Government, Williams Lake First Nation, the Upper Fraser Fisheries Conservation Alliance, and the Federal Department of Fisheries and Oceans on fish management. Staff are monitoring the Chilcotin River to understand water quality and the challenges that fish might face. Salmon are struggling with turbidity of the water in the Chilcotin and Fraser rivers, and while the water is still cloudy, it's slowly getting better and is currently at levels that salmon can tolerate. A number of Chinook and salmon and sockeye salmon have made it past the Chilcotin River slide site over the past few days. This is very good news. Our monitoring of whether more salmon can make it through the area over the next few days will be crucial to determining our next step. While we remain vigilant and continue to monitor the water turbidity, if salmon aren't able to pass through the slide naturally by early September, we'll implement a mitigation plan co-developed with First Nations and the DFO to alleviate the impacts. We will continue to face unpredictable environmental hazards like drought, landslides, wildfires, and floods. As seen through our recent efforts to mitigate the impacts of drought in the Chilcotin River landslide, we are most successful when British Columbians come together to face these challenges together. Thank you very much, and I'll now hand it back to my colleague, Minister Ma.
Thank you, Minister Cullen. We now have time for questions. Joining us virtually are Ian Cunnings, Senior Director of Regional Operations with the Ministry of Emergency Management and Climate Readiness, Forrest Tower, Manager of Communications and Engagement with the BC Wildfire Service, Connie Chapman, Executive Director of Water Management with the Ministry of Water, Lands and Resource Stewardship, and Jeremy Oaten, Deputy Director of Emergency Management with the Ministry of Agriculture and Food.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. To the media on the line, please press *1 to enter the queue for one question and one follow-up. We will start with questions from the media in the room first. Please state your name and outlet. Go ahead.
Aaron MacArthur, Global News. A question for Minister Ma. I understand the state of local emergency for the Venables Valley has been rescinded. Will there be ongoing provincial support for the residents that were impacted by the Shetland Creek fire?
Yeah, for those community members who have been impacted by wildfire in the Venables Valley and elsewhere in the province, particularly if their primary principal homes have been impacted, it is a difficult time as they navigate the pathway to rebuilding what they have lost. We do continue to work closely with local communities to discuss their needs and how we can provide support at a provincial level in order to help those communities in their support of those people who may be navigating these times. Yeah.
Do you have a follow-up?
Yes, a follow-up, slightly off topic. We're hearing from search and rescue teams that there's a lag in approving helicopter time for searches. Is there any concern that critical resources are not being allocated to search and rescue teams across BC?
Yeah, ground search and rescue teams do such an incredibly important and difficult job for British Columbians in communities right across the province. When they go out in the middle of the night or during the day to find somebody's loved one and bring them home, it is important that that work is done with the utmost care and that the province provides the support that they need. Oftentimes, search and rescue teams require the support of aerial resources like helicopters. In the last fiscal year, we approved the use of helicopters for nearly 1,000 separate incidents, and the vast majority of those approvals are provided extremely quickly, almost instantaneously in many cases. For a small number of incidents, however, the ministry does may require some additional information from requesting agencies. So requesting agency may be, for instance, the RCMP in order to authorize helicopter use. And sometimes we also defer the approval of those aerial resources to a requesting agencies. For instance, the RCMP is responsible for rescue of domestic animals, so they would they would make the decision as to whether or not an aerial resource could or could not be approved. That being said, all of the cases that are brought to our attention where the system isn't working as quickly as it needs to is a good thing for us to hear about, because we want to be continuously improving our processes, improving the way that we're providing support to ground search and rescue teams. So we will be looking into those cases that have been brought to our attention and working collaboratively with the ground search and rescue community to ensure that there are constant improvements to the way that we're working together.
Great. That concludes today's event.